I don't totally know. Yeah, good morning. We are on 5 levels of leadership. And yeah, I'm not even going to say it, how much I love this book. I just did because I think I say it every week. Okay, we're doing the last section of permission leadership, which is level 2, best behaviors, and moving through to level 3. Yeah, so we're starting, if we want reference, Sherry, we're starting on page what, 105?
105, yeah, page 105.
How to gain people's permission. Oh, here's
And I
Diane.
feel like this is one that we talk a lot about relationships and permission and all those kinds of things. So I feel like this level is a pretty, we're pretty aware of the permission level of leadership. He talks about the number one thing he talks about is connect with yourselves before trying to connect with others. And so this might be the part of permission and relationships that we haven't focused on as much. And he John Maxwell says on that very first page, the first person I must know is myself, self-awareness. Learn your strengths and weaknesses. Ask others to evaluate you, understand the way you think, feel, and act in all situations. And he says, so once you know who you are, then forget about yourself and focus on others. And I think that's what I've found in spending time learning about my side sisters, is learning their strengths, learning what I so appreciate about them, learning who lifts me up and how they lift me up, and knowing that if I'm on a Zoom with Jimmy Lou, I am going to be smiling. Like, just that simple.
I feel the same way about you, Sherry. So, it's all good. If I know Sherry's going to be on, she's going to have a great smile and it's going to lift me up. And yep.
We're going to have just a love fest here. You raise me up. Like little Josh Groban to start out your Saturday morning.
There we go. So
it's
good.
interesting. It's so interesting that this is kind of the foundational piece of this, right? How you talk to yourself. I mean, we talk about this all the time, but it's very evident in the business that we have. If you don't know yourself, if you are not aligned with who you are, you will not attract the people to you in order to lead. So it's almost like if you don't have this piece, even if you are able to attract those people, they're not going to hang out for a whole lot of time. Right? Like,
I'm finding the 60 days of loving yourself is excellent. It's get you kind of dig a little bit deeper and kind of, okay, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. That's how I should be feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or how am I feeling? Or why am I not feeling that way? Or temperature check, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I love what he says on page 106. The first person to cause me problems is myself. The hardest person that you will ever lead is yourself, right? It's that self-awareness and all of those things. But my goodness, right? And I can see how a person can, depending on where you are in growth, slide back even in your own level of leadership to yourself, right? And you know what? We can just, like, let's be honest. The level of relationship you have with yourself would not be as crucial if your job were making donuts at Tim Hortons.
I only want to donuts with somebody who's feeling happy.
Okay.
I'll make donuts with Jimmy.
Yep. But it doesn't change, like, your relationship with yourself doesn't change your ability to make the donuts.
Correct. What I would suggest, and I know where you're going to now, and I totally agree with you, but I would also say that your relationship with yourself reflects in your attitude. How much you like yourself or accept yourself reflects in your attitude, and therefore it reflects onto how much you like and accept and work with your coworkers
I agree.
in any situation.
And how deep you're willing to go with them, right? And I mean, we could use the term coworkers in this in a broad sense, because that, I mean, for simplicity's sake, you know, sometimes it's really hard to define what we are or what we do. Or trust me, when you fill out a passport application, it's really very funny. How do I put what do I put down that I do that will actually trigger some positive response from the government? But yes, in a very black and white sense, coworkers. But these relationships that we have here in this business are so important. He goes into this later on when he's talking about, you know, your company or your relationships with your coworkers or your employees, as it were, cannot be family exactly, but there can be this beautiful blend of both the permission leadership and the family atmosphere, which is what I think we really truly strive for here. But in order to go forward with this business, it is a total reflection. Your ability to relate to other people is a total reflection of how well you relate to yourself and where your values and your what's the word? Your acceptance of yourself, your failures, your flaws, and your willingness to work on it to move forward is.
I was going to say, excuse me, I'm in taking Soul Detox right now. So I'm kind of focused on that and some of the exercises she wants us to do. But one of the exercises that I need to do is I need to write out 100 things about myself that I love. And what I like about myself, the top 100 things. So this will be interesting. But it does. There's so much that goes back to that, right? And about loving yourself. Like, how do you step forward and love others? I know we say that, but really, it's really hard for some people, and you can see that in how they deal with people, because they don't love themselves. They don't, you know, like even sorry, lost the thought. But yeah, it's getting down to who are you, and do you love that about yourself, right? On Tuesday, what day was it? Tuesday, when I watched the Sonley Dudley that I was gonna put a Leaders Lounge. One of the things that the exercise that she asked us to be is to be vulnerable about something about ourselves. That was the day that I put in about my struggles with dyslexia, because go back to Soul Detox, that was one of the things that was brought up about something that happened in your past that was very emotionally, like that you experienced some trauma over, right? And so it fit in so nicely with what Sonley Dudley put in. Now, let's take it a step further. Why was that? Why did Sonley Dudley ask for us to be vulnerable, right? Why was that part of the exercise? Because she knows, again, going back, she's probably read lots of John C. Maxwell books, that part of that relationship building with the people around you is being vulnerable about who you are and going right, who you are, and maybe some things that were difficult in your life and some things that you've had to accept, which I think we get to. Maybe we talked about it, right? And so it all goes in together. But how are you supposed to relationship build with people if you don't, I'm getting ahead maybe, but without opening yourselves up a little bit about who you are? And these are the parts that, I struggled with, or that, I have to accept myself, that this is, some things that I struggle with, that Jimmy Lou gets her left and her right mixed up, and words sometimes don't come out right. Right. And it all goes in. But again, that relationship building, right? About finding things that, hey, like, I totally identify with you about that. Like, I get that you, right? Love yourself in that part. Don't beat yourself up again and again, because that's exactly what I did. I beat myself up because I couldn't get it right. And that was probably, when I think about it, sorry guys, I'm going through this process as I'm thinking about it. I was the biggest person in my life that hated on myself. I was. It wasn't the teachers. It wasn't my mom. It was myself. I was the one. I hated myself. Why couldn't I get this? Why didn't I understand? And I didn't understand as a kid of how to love myself. I think my mom tried so hard. To me, you're perfectly made. God has created you. He knows all those things, right? But right. And so we're taking people down that path that maybe never, ever learn to love themselves. Never. So that's where the encouraging part comes in. Okay, I'm done.
So
Jenny,
good.
I absolutely love that. And you mentioned write down 100 things you love about yourself. I think that's an incredibly valuable journaling exercise for everybody here. I would totally challenge. Linda, are you hiding? I would challenge everybody to start that list and start adding to it. You've got 60 days of loving yourself. Pick a page and start writing down those things.
I love that. I agree. And it's hard, right? It's hard, but it really does make you think, for sure.
It really makes you think. It's, yeah, really, really good.
So much of this, like, I feel like we could spend forever talking about this level of permission. Sherry, where do you want to go next? I'll let you.
Well, let's
Chart
just
the
go to
course.
page 107 where we get to number 2. We talk about developing a people-oriented
People-oriented.
leadership style. And he said, permissional leaders don't rely on rules to lead people. And I think sometimes we get caught up in rules. And well, they're not doing it right. Or they're doing it wrong. We become judgmental about the black and the white. And really, it comes back to that heart for people. And like Jimmy said, when you don't love yourself, when that's hard, then black and white is easier. Black and white is an easy place to go. Go ahead, Janelle.
I was just going to say, I think that a reflection of being insecure with our own strengths can be, well, if they're not doing it my way, then it must be wrong, right? And there are different pieces to that too. And I would encourage people to trust their leaders in that. Yes, you know what? Sometimes there are wrong ways to do things. Case in point, I think Linda and I had a very similar experience. Somebody from another network marketing company knows that you're with a network marketing company and comes in and is very backdoor, underhanded, deceitful, trying to get you to come and use their product and maybe come over to their business, but they're not willing to be super straight with you. I would say, I don't care who you are or how much confidence that is. If you are not willing to be straight with someone, that's wrong. That one would be the exception to what I'm saying. But, you know, and being willing to listen to your leader and saying, hey, you know what, you've gone before me. There are some things, Sherry's so good at this. She's like, diamonds think differently than I do. I've realized that people who've been here for longer than I have and have reached other levels of success and lead people, they think differently than I do. And so that's just a little piece for everyone. If your leader is telling you something that seems very alternate to what you're doing, it could be because they have a different viewpoint of the situation. But on the other hand, if you're, as a leader, as you're looking at what your downline is doing, you know, there's kind of a fine line, and there's really no, there is no black or white when you're looking at this, right? Sometimes no, they may not do something the way that you would do it, but you know what? When you are a secure leader, when you're secure in yourself, it's like, hey, cool, let's try it, right? Let's give it a try.
I like at the bottom where he says, leading an organization is as much about soul as it is about system. Effective leadership finds its source in understanding. And we often talk about systems and how to help people not fall through the cracks and all the things. I have listened to so many diamonds say, you know, I don't really have a system. I keep this list in my notebook of who I'm talking to. And when somebody wants to connect or whatever, I jot their name in my day planner. It's not really a system. I really just go to where they are. I listen to what they need. I meet them where they are, encourage them to come along. And that's really, in my opinion, kind of that soul of permissional leadership.
Yeah, when I was listening to this, I'm like, okay, John just gave me permission to not focus on the system, right? Because that was the buzzword, you guys remember, like probably, you know, over the last 2 years, you know, what are the systems, you know, whatever. And for my brain, that's been so difficult. And I know a lot of leaders who feel the same way, but I also think that we put a different emphasis on the word system, because what you just described, Sherry, is a system. We just don't look at it, doesn't feel systematic, because when your focus is loving on people and doing it well, and it is just in you, right? It's not something that you have sat down and calculated and made steps for and created a board and, you know, like, this is my board to loving somebody well. It's just something that you do, and you don't realize that it's a systematic piece, right? So that was really good. Sorry, I'm trying to recap this piece. You must think more in terms of buy-in and less in terms of procedures, which I just thought was so awesome. In other words, you must think of people before you try to achieve progress. To do that as a permissional leader, you must exhibit a consistent mood, maintain an optimistic attitude, possess a listening ear, and present to others your authentic self. So there we go back to the authenticity, the alignment with who you are.
And I think be willing to look for support and so on. And I'm going to give you a perfect example this morning on the support. So I've got a cancer on my wrist. Why do I have a cancer? Well, my wrist's been bugging me for a few months. It's been sore, it's been annoying. So what have I done? Well, stretched it a little, ignored it a little, thought it would go away. And I talked to Brenna, and this is the really good thing about talk to your people. And she says, oh, my wrist bothered me a couple months ago. I put cancer on it for a week or so, and it's all good now. I didn't think of that. Why not try it? Try a bit of support.
Brilliant. And that is such a great illustration, because how many times have you done that with your downline or your sidelines, and you've gone, what is it? Why can't I? Oh, have you thought of, Amy was talking about Metaburn, how she'd, you know, it took her like 6 weeks to figure out that she wasn't taking Metaburn anymore, and there was a big gap in how she was feeling. And she's like, oh, right. I love that about our community, is that we are those people. We don't all have a Brenna in our lives, like Jeanette, like hereditarily with it, like in the family, we don't have a Brenna necessarily, right? And so for those of us who don't have a Brenna, who will say, put a tensor bandage on it, we need somebody who will come along and say, hey, Janelle, are you eating too many walnuts? Just off the top of my head.
Chiropractor says to me yesterday, he says, well, for your wrist, you know, omega-3s are good. You could eat more walnuts, have more fish. And I just smiled. I thought, I could. I didn't share your story, but I could.
I ordered a salad the other day, and then as the waiter's walking away, I'm like, oh, there's walnuts on the salad. Can I have no walnuts? Stop with the walnuts, everybody. Oh, if you haven't, I'm so sorry. This will not keep for time, but yeah, walnuts.
I was
They're
gonna
not
say
what you think.
there's one step, but there's also, we can go a little deeper with the bandage. You are also giving permission to say, you know what? I'm going to rest this part of my body. I'm going to protect it. I'm just going to give it.
Huh.
Jimmy, you're brilliant.
Yep.
It is brilliant. And you know what? The tensor also probably gives you a visual reminder of, oh, I should be resting. Yeah, shoes on the other foot here, Sherry Grant.
I knew it was dangerous to share this.
Oh, but you know what? This is a beautiful picture of why we have relationships with people, why we come alongside each other to learn to lead together, is so that we could do things like this, right? Like Sherry's been telling Jimmy that she needs to rest more. She's whatever, and the shoe just totally turned on the other foot. It's fantastic, but without relationship and without giving somebody permission to lead in your life, they're not upline and downline, right? I'm giving my friend the permission to lead me in this area. And yeah, it's not because of a system. It's because of who they are and how they care. And it's exactly what I just read. It's all of those pieces and being transparent, right? So important. Okay, practice the golden rule. We know what the golden rule is. Do unto others.
The one that I love on this is page 109, and he talks about all the different religions and the variations in the golden rule. But when I was reading this last night, I just burst out laughing. The very bottom one from Nigeria, the Yoruba proverb. One going to take a pointed stick to pinch a baby bird should first try it on himself
Yes.
to feel how it hurts.
To feel how it hurts. I know. I like that one too. It's so true. It is so
and
true.
Really, it's about respect.
Yeah. Yep. And then number 4, we come back to everyone is under encouraged, right? Become the chief encourager of your team. When you think you have encouraged enough, encourage some more. When you, and I think that this last week too, not just, I guess I shouldn't say just this last week, this has been something that has really, really begun to open my eyes, even though I've read this book how many times. This is not my first go around the block with leadership and that kind of thing, but I'm finding that my eyes are open more and more to situations where I'm not the positional leader. I have not been identified as the leader in the situation, but I'm choosing leadership because it's just who I am. And instead of thinking, oh, I'm not the leader here, I don't really need to, so my illustration is, I was co-leading worship last week, and on Saturday night, and the fellow who leads has been there longer than me, knows the people better than me, likes to be identified as the leader, and I'm good with that. Like, he's a good leader. Like, he is the leader. And when I say he likes it, as in he doesn't shy away from it, right? Like that's just, and I tend to defer, right? But I thought, I'm going to send messages to everybody that I have phone numbers for the night before, just ask how everybody's doing, encourage them, whatever. And I felt a different cohesion coming into service on Sunday morning with how everybody was reacting, because I felt like we'd connected, even though I had only connected them to me and maybe they didn't know that I was connecting with everybody else, but I felt a different connection. And then I had something to talk to each one of them about, because it just wasn't like a one-off, hey, I just wanted to encourage you tonight. There was an actual exchange, right? And so I knew what to pray for. I knew what to ask when we came in the morning. We had groundwork laid, and then I followed up with, gee, it was so great. Like on Sunday afternoon, it was really great to lead with you today. Thank you for being part of our team. And the cohesion that I felt there, and I thought, before. I've done this for however long with these people. I've never thought to do this. But man, when you start to look for opportunities to lead because you know that it's just simply going to enhance the community that you're in, it's such a blessing. Like it never returns to you empty. Diana said, love that he said, if someone is breathing, they need a pat on the back. Absolutely. I love that too.
And a reminder that our kids need those pats on the back too. And I don't care if they're 3 or 33.
Yeah.
The same thing is sometimes we think, well, they know that I admire them. They know that I love them. They know that I'm, so in awe of the things that they're doing. You know what? You just say the word.
It reminds me of that whole concept for every however, and I can't remember what the number is, what the ratio is supposed to be for however many negative things that we say to our children, we're supposed to balance them out with so many more positives. I don't do that super well. I don't do that super well. I should do it better. But especially,
we
No,
do
go ahead.
that. That's exactly, thank you for bringing that up, because we are sometimes the worst to our family for encouraging them. That is a very good point, and we need to be reminded to do that better, right? Good point. Yeah, we don't encourage our family, our children enough, right? Oh,
In all honesty, when was the last time you put a post on Facebook encouraging one of your children?
yesterday.
Okay, Janelle is the winner.
No, I didn't.
I don't remember when I have.
I made a reel yesterday. I came across this audio and I know only one of my children will see it. So I will have to actually show my other children what it is. But I would encourage, if you guys want to use this reel and do the same thing, do it. It was just, and you know what? The reflection on it for me was probably the biggest return. Whether my kid listens to it with audio or not, which is the audio is the kicker, right? Because it's this, here, I'll see.
If it wasn't for you, I kind of wouldn't be as strong as I am right now.
Yeah, like it was simple, but it was going back through and seeing these pictures of my kids and going, yeah, you know what? You have raised me, right? And they have helped to grow me up. And so anyway, that was my yesterday thing. So that was not planned. That was not Sherry
That was well
trying
done.
to, but yeah, but I agree. I don't do it often enough. And encouragement can look different. And I know that we're all in different phases. Nikki does this so well with her kids. I love watching what she does with her children because like she's just such an awesome mom. But I know I've got a kid who loves to serve. And so encouraging her is giving her permission and the opportunity to do that. So I was just thinking, as Sherry was like, when is the last time that I think this afternoon between her and Addison really loves to do this too, but making cinnamon buns or baking something in the kitchen that will, the payoff for them is, yeah, I can do it. I can do something creative with my hands, but then I will be appreciated by my family because my family loves the outcome. They get to take advantage of what I have just done. So that is my action point. We're supposed to be cleaning. I feel like that's alternate to the cleaning, but you know what? And I think that that's a really good metaphor. Oftentimes we shy away from doing the things we need to do because of the mess it could potentially cause, right? We shy away from those conversations, and he has been talking about this, and it goes right into the strike a balance between care and candor. We are often afraid to have the conversations or empower the children to do the things because of the mess that it could elicit, right? And I think I want to encourage you guys, because there are things that need to be said in leadership, in relationships. And for a long time, I had the opinion in my leadership of, and kind of what we were talking about earlier, how, well, everybody kind of does things differently. And well, they'll come around to their own realization on this. yeah, you know, I could do that. Likely we're not going to grow as well together in relationship. The business isn't going to grow as well. My responsibility simply is to, in a caring way, have these conversations, be willing to screw up. That's the other piece. Be willing to mess up with the balance of care and candor, learn, apologize, move forward. But you, black and white, if you don't lead, somebody will lead themselves, and they may not lead themselves towards the right place. Far harder to pull them out of the depths than just to keep them on the road.
And I think that this care and candor one, as I was going through it last night, the line, and it was on page 113, that really, really struck me was caring establishes the relationship while candor expands the relationship. And I really thought about that, because when I started, I was all about permissional leadership, and you can, you know, whatever you choose to do is good with me, and I'll support you wherever you choose to be. But I didn't, and I'm still working on, let's be real authentic here. I'm still working on how to get the balance of candor with care. How to help somebody become aware at the level that they're ready to become aware of. Because I know that the relationship doesn't get better until you have some of those conversations.
Well, and that's exactly where I was thinking is, if you have a leader who chooses to get, because it's a choice, right? You don't have to have those hard conversations. If you have a leader or someone in your life who is willing to have a hard conversation, now I'm not saying they tear you limb from limb and you're left feeling awful, from a good mindset, right? Because again, it depends on where we're sitting, right? If we don't have a good mindset about something, we assume the worst of people. It doesn't matter how much care or candor like the person brings into the conversation. If you're sitting there assuming the worst, it's going to feel awful. But be thankful for people who choose to have those hard conversations with you, because what they're actually telling you is you are worth it. The relationship here is worth it. It is worth it to go through the muck and the mire with you. It is worth it to possibly lose ground in order to gain ground in the long run, right? And I think that is something that is not done well in society oftentimes, because you look at Facebook or social or whatever, and how many people just get put on blast, right? Like they have an issue with someone or something or whatever, and all they want to do is be right, be snarky, and blast it out to the world, and then they've done their piece and they're going to be hostile about it, instead of thinking, okay, what can I do to change the situation? This is worth it to me, right? This person is worth it to me to pursue resolution, regardless of what feelings get brought up in the meantime.
And it brings me back to kids. I mean, that's raising them, having grandkids. But it's like you care enough about your kids to help them learn, to do the discipline, to have the hard conversation, to stay in a situation. I understand that your emotions are struggling right now. Let's take a time out. Let's leave the store. Let's do whatever we have to do to give you a safe space so that we can together help you sort out what's happening for you.
How many moms have left a full grocery cart sitting in aisle 7?
And then you get back to the car, and what happens?
Usually by the time we got back to the car, my kids were angels.
It was a lesson, it was learned, and it wasn't repeated.
Yeah, I think I only had to do that once or twice, but my kids still remember it, and it happened when they were like super little. Like when mama has to go to like drive a really long distance, Sherry, you would be there too. You have to drive a really long distance, and then you leave the cart and there's no cookies for a snack. It is super impactful, right? So funny.
Very impactful. I have
Do
a
it
daughter
quickly.
laughing in the corner.
Yeah, that's fair. I love this. Guys, this goes straight through it, right? Like bottom of 116, do it quickly, shovel the pile while it's small. You know what? If I walked out of a grocery store with my teen and my 3 teens and my preteen with a grocery cart full, they'd probably be like, Mom has totally lost it. And there would be a lot more hostility than there was when they were like teeny. But the message was far more impactful in the small years. I mean, they still talk about the time that I pulled over to the side of the road and pulled Ella out of her car seat when she was less than 2. And I was going to leave her on the side of the road because she wanted to get out of her car seat. Guess what? She never asked to get out of her car seat again. Nobody ever did. And I think that the lesson was passed down to the one who wasn't born yet either. Don't ask to get out of your car seat. She'll let you out. And it won't be where you want to be. Yeah. Some of those things. Creative parenting. Creative parenting. Brenna, I would love to hear, you know what? I would love to hear the Brenna commentary on that side of things because I would love to hear her angle. And Sherry's like, are you sure? Do you want to come in the seat?
So I actually, as you mentioned being less on the side of the road, I remember as siblings being less on the side of the road and the entire vehicle going crazy as we drove away saying, you're not seriously going to leave him there. And I don't know, we went about 30 feet. But it was enough that it made the point.
I think I just revved my engine and I had the whole vehicle. We're like, don't leave Ella.
Yeah. And that is really the follow through. And I've said this often, if it's not big enough, it's not, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, it's not big enough for me to get all worked up about. But if this is going to make a difference to my kids respecting me, to me following through, I will follow through, period.
Choose your battles and be willing to finish them.
Yeah, pick your battle. Page 117, we go on to, and I really like this, as you work with people and have candid conversations, allow me to remind you of one more thing. Candidness is a two-way street. If you want to be an effective leader and earn your way to level 2, you must allow the people you work with to be candid with you. And I so appreciate when I get feedback, either sidelines or from my team, that is negative to me. Feedback that says, this, wasn't working. This is how I felt. This is whatever. Because it allows me then to rethink, how did I say it? What did I provide? What was the interpretation? Did I do this in a way that respected their feelings and where they were at, or their understanding of the situation? And did I do it in a format? And we've got so many formats. We can text, we can email, we can do voice messages, we can actually have a phone conversation, we can do a Zoom. We've got so many ways. Did I choose the wrong way? Or am I leaving that little pile over there and procrastinating until I think that it's the perfect way? And we all know, progress over perfection. But it's a two-way. You have to solicit feedback and you have to be mature and secure enough, taking people's criticism without defensiveness and learn from it. And I think as leaders, this is maybe one of the most important parts in this whole chapter, is that listening piece where we're actually interested in hearing the feedback and having the conversation. And he says, this is permission at its best.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, like a downfall that I think that I've had in the past is I've tried to be really open to hearing feedback and whatever, but I have stopped at the corrective, and I don't want to say corrective action because that sounds like very authoritarian of me, but that's not what I mean. It's yes, I would love to take your feedback, but please expect it from me. Expect that I will And it may not always be super positive. I mean, I try to always say something positive on either end of it, but it is okay as a leader to tell someone when they've stepped in it. And to have discernment, right? So for example, you have a brand new ambassador. I have a wonderful son who just brought me my glasses. Thank you, honey. You have a brand new ambassador who has just started to share. And they say something in a post that is not, or say that they post about the NFR and they're like brand spanking new, and you've just had to you've just done a couple tweaks and whatever. You might let that go that time, because we're just going for progress over perfection. And that one post is not the hill to die on. But maybe in like a month or in a couple weeks, we have a conversation about, hey, you know what? So we've got this awesome NFR side. I'd encourage you to go and check it out. Here are sort of the guidelines around it. And this is sort of what I hold myself to. So just so that you guys know, and I like to say this over and over and over again, I often, if I'm going to post NFR anything, it'll be over on Instagram, because Instagram is where I market to more of like, the analytics or whatever are, I've got more US followers on Instagram than I know that I do on Facebook. So to me, that works out, right? Like I would love, and to be honest, I would really not want to sell anybody greens in Canada, because that's a headache. That is a huge headache. I don't want to go through that unless they're already a customer, but I'd love to do it in the States, right? So this is a better place to put that rather than over on Facebook when most of your audience is Canadian. So yeah. All right, I think we're about at page 118. The laws of leadership at the permission level.
I think if we go to 118, I would just like to hear if anybody's got a comment on what they've found with permissional leadership, what they've found works, what they've found is most challenging. Because I think as we're kind of getting to the end of this permissional leadership process, this is the opportunity to have that conversation.
Just looking back at some of the different leaders in my life, like if I just go back to high school even, there were certain teachers that you really, really liked because they were so relational. And they were so relational, but it was to the point of they would get walked on and taken advantage of constantly because they knew they wouldn't really get in trouble. And if they did say something kind of like, if that teacher did kind of reprimand a little bit, they would feel bad later and give you candy. Like, I am not joking. But then there were some other leaders, some other teachers. They had very high expectations of you, but they were also really funny and they made you laugh. And so I always really, you felt like, okay, I'm going to rise to the occasion. I really respect this person and they're funny. So I really like them and all that kind of stuff, right? But then there's some other teachers that were just like stern as stern and you were just afraid. And you're just like, I'm just going to stay in line. I'm just going to do what I have to. And then as soon as I can get out of here, I'm getting out of here. Like, I'm getting out of this room, I'll do what I have to so I don't get in trouble, but boy. And I have to say, like, I aspire way more to be like those teachers that that demanded respect because of their high expectations, but also were there to be your friend. And it was a lot easier to they definitely had our permission. Nobody was like, wow, our teacher is so mean. Oh my gosh. They would never say anything like that. They'd be like, what? This is way too hard. They'd be like, I think you could do it. And then you're like, okay, I guess I can. And And so it was just way more empowering as opposed to, I think sometimes even in parenting, I know that some of my siblings have different parenting styles than I do. And they're very authoritarian in the, like, it's, personally, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's terrifies me even. But where it's basically like you sit in line, you don't say anything, and you just behave. And if you don't, then you're gonna feel it tomorrow too. Like it's gonna hurt a lot. And I wouldn't say that I don't know. I'm worried for how that's gonna turn out later in their life. But I do know that I'm also not the expert when it comes to parenting. But I have seen parents who are very relational with their kids. Their kids are so respectful towards them, and conflict is so much easier to handle.
She froze.
She froze. It was so good. Maybe she'll come back and finish her thought. Parenting is like the perfect petri dish for all of these things, isn't it?
It's a great place to learn.
Yeah, I can't remember that poor firstborn, right, Brenna? I was actually gonna say to Chelsea, I'm like, no, but she can look at the firstborn and say, yep, they made their mistakes on you. Sure glad it wasn't me. Sure glad it wasn't me. Sure glad you, yeah. Like I look at my firstborn and I think, yeah, sorry. Did anybody ever watch Family Matters growing up? Like with Steve Urkel and whatever. His comment was always, I'm wearing you down, baby. I'm wearing you down. And I always think about that with like the firstborn. Like he's there to just wear us down. And by the time we get to Addison, we won't be perfect, but man, the edges will be rounded off a little bit more. So Chelsea, you froze, but I was just thinking as you were talking about that, I'm like, oh, I wonder how many kids these people have and how old they are, because maybe by the time they have their younger, like their last one, they'll relax a little bit. Because I know I have. Because I know Lucas will say to me, you never would have let us do that. I'm like, yeah, well, he's a different kid. And, I got it out of my system with you. So
they only have three kids. So, and they're done apparently. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally true. So I think if we need to move on because we're getting close to the end of our time, but we talked a little bit as we went about the laws of leadership at the permission level. And we talked about the law of buy-in already. We certainly referred to the law of influence. We haven't so much talked about the law of addition, which is adding value by serving others, but that's definitely a permission leadership law.
I want to just pause.
Ground.
I want to pause for just 2 seconds on the law of influence, because influence is something that is so, so, so big. Like he says, like that's everything. Influence is absolutely everything. So if you feel like you lack influence or you need to fine tune that, or you just want to revisit it, he does have a really amazing book, which is Becoming a Person of Influence. And I was reminded of that. And I went through it at a time where I was growing in so many different places in my life. I think I need to go back to it again. But when we really consider influence and we put the right emphasis on it and growth in influence, guys, not everybody who comes to a business like this has positive influence or has influence over people. And when I say positive, I mean like sometimes people will come and they will want to have influence, but the influence that they have over people is that they run the complete opposite direction. And then they decide that they want to do network marketing. And you just think, okay, well, we got to work on that direction here. We've got to put some work in on that. So if that is somewhere that you identify that you could grow in, maybe choose that as an audio or something like that. We went through it. I think Sherry's team went through it, or we went through it actually. Didn't we? Yeah, we did.
In 2020, I think.
Yeah, it was like the beginning, like the first half of 2020 when everything was falling apart.
Yeah.
Sorry, as you were. Magnetism is where you were.
That's perfect, because these laws, and I'm really just going to mention them here. So if anybody has a comment about any of them, that's fabulous. And we've just been through them in the 21 laws. So if you think, oh, what was that? Just go back, have a little review. We've got the audios of all of those in our group in the Leader Lounge. So go back and listen to one of them. It can help support what you're thinking about. The law of solid ground is one that I think is essential because it's trust. And I don't think that you have influence until you have trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I really believe that trust is the base of leadership. It's that foundation. It's like building on rock versus building on sand.
Yeah, I like that.
And he calls it trust is the glue that holds people together. The next one that he mentions here is the law of magnetism, and we certainly talked about that quite a bit. Who you are is who you attract. And as you grow and change and learn and develop, it's interesting how you notice that the people that you spend time with are reflecting your values. They're reflecting your growth.
And I want to just park there for just like 2 seconds, because when I was listening to this over again, we talk about relationships within Plexus and grabbing, sidelines and whatever, and being a leader to those who are beside you and not just, below. I don't want to say below you. That is so wrong. In your downline. How's that? That's better. I know you would know what I mean, but you know what would we really consider that we first and foremost need to protect our peace, our mindset, what is coming out of us, right? We need to really consider what's going into us, right? We can be a positive influence, right? But not at the expense of our own mindset, our own peace, the aftertaste. I love how Alyssa Bjorn talked about at Leaders Retreat or at Ruby Retreat. She talked about the aftertaste that you leave people with, right? Like if you come into a room and you have a conversation with people, what is the thing that you leave them with, right? So I would encourage you guys to ask yourselves the people that you're with. Now, this falls, like, you can't change who you live with. You can try to change the temperature in your home. Sometimes with teens, it's a little volatile. But really be mindful of the people that you allow into your circle of influence. You can be a good influence to others, but then you need to spend a proportionately appropriate amount of time being influenced on the other scale, right? Like if you are influencing a group of people who you see as a calling to come and deposit into their lives because they need you, which is great, you also need to have deposits put into you. Again, go back to that emotional bank account. You need to have deposits put into you that are going to outweigh that other piece, right? Because you will have some of those less than stellar things that do kind of come into your head, right? You want to make sure that you are taking in a lot of that positive. And what is that saying? You become most like the 5 people you spend the most of your time with, right? So you really want to watch what that is. And it's also okay as you grow. Like I've watched a couple reels lately, and the thing that stands out is the one that's talking about you should never be the smartest person in the room. If you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Doesn't mean you can't visit the other rooms to add value, but the room that you exist in for most of your time, you should not be the smartest person in the room. So try to introduce yourself into other rooms. And when you realize that maybe that room is not for you, give yourself the permission to leave it. And that's okay.
And I think the other part of moving into a different room, Janelle, is recognize that the people in that room are going to think differently than you do. And recognize that that's maybe how you need to grow is in your thinking so that you can become the person who fits in that room. It's not always about leaving the room if it's not a fit. Sometimes it's about becoming the person so that you fit the room.
Absolutely. And the other piece is be with people who are willing to, and again, this is another one of those saying things. Spend your time with people who would introduce you in a room full of opportunities. If the people that you're with would not have your name on their lips in a room full of opportunities for you, you're not with the right people. So, and I love how Sherry talks about that whole, you know, again, people think differently than you do. I think as I spend more time in a leadership arena, I realize that the ability to zoom out and go, what do they see that I don't see? Stand there with your mouth closed and try to zoom out and take a look at what the other leaders who have gone before me see that I don't. Just because they've gone before me doesn't necessarily mean that they're smarter than me, but I want to know what other people are seeing and not just discount their reaction. I want to know why. I want to know why they're thinking what they're thinking. And I want to learn how I can think from a higher level and not just because we are where we are for a reason. And I'll say this to the ends of the earth. I am an emerald, and I don't want to say just. I am an emerald with plexus because that is where my leadership level is. I am not a sapphire and I am not a diamond. So I want to know how they think. I want to know how they assess situations. I want to become a better leader so that then once I become that, I will step into that next level. It is just the way that it goes, right? I was a gold for a long time. I was a senior gold for the amount of time that I was supposed to be. I was a ruby for the amount of time that I was supposed to be. I was a silver for the amount of time I was supposed to be. You know, God grant me the growth and the mindset to do all of the things that I need to do in order to step into that next level. And I hope that you guys continue to have that that same, I know you all do, continue to have that same mindset where it's like, you know what, bring me the experiences, bring me the muck with the people that will grow me into the next level that I need to be in. Which
So I know
brings us
that
into-
our time is up. We're at the end of our time. So I'm just going to encourage you all to read through again the beliefs that help a leader move up to level 3 and the guide to growing through level 2. Because the really exciting part in terms of leveling up to your next rank comes in your level 3 production. So that's where we're going to start next week, and we're going to be talking about upsides of production.
Awesome. I'm so excited to listen to it when I come back from Florida. A little call to action if you want bonus work is that 100 things that you love about yourself. Jimmy, thank you so much for sharing that. Linda, you don't need to show us, but you should do it because you're squirming. And because you're squirming, I'm going to say you should do it. I think everybody should send Linda 2 things that they love about her to get her started. I think that would be awesome. Thank you guys so much for choosing to spend your time here. And for those of you guys who weren't able to have your cameras on, thank you guys so much for choosing to lend an ear or wherever you are. I so value that. Yeah, have a great Saturday, guys. And yeah.
And we'll see you next Saturday.
See you.